The world is awash with evidence that the coronavirus pandemic has given nature a little respite to rejuvenate and breathe by forcing man to stay indoors. Now, this, experts say, is because the virus emerged due to wildlife exploitation. Now, past events such as pandemics, wars, and financial crises have also triggered unquantifiable environmental changes. It is therefore expected that humans would learn to cohabit the earth with other creatures to sustain the delicate balance of nature post-COVID-19. What should be the strategies of national governments and intergovernmental organizations to safeguard both biodiversity and human health throughout the COVID-19 recovery and beyond? Now, this is the focus of Nigeria Today as the world commemorates the International Day of Biological Diversity. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Azu. Now, joining me to speak further on COVID-19 and biodiversity is Dr. Agbola Okeyoyin. He's Assistant Conservator General, National Parks Service. Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And also joining us this time via Zoom is Zainab Oiza Adeza. She's a conservation biologist and at the Department of Biological Sciences, Bayes University, Abuja. Welcome to the program too.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let me begin with you right away. For the benefit of the viewer, what exactly is biodiversity in a layman's language?
Okay, biodiversity is a compound word that means biological diversity. And by that, we mean the entirety of plants and animals found in a particular area.
As simple as that. Now, but how is it measured? Because if you say it is found in a simple, in a particular area, how do you then measure biodiversity?
Well, biodiversity is measured based on the locality you want to pinpoint. For instance, if you want to take Abuja as your locality, you want to measure all the wild plants and animals here. Bear in mind that we're referring to wild plants and animals, not domestic animals or ornamental plants that people put in their gardens. So in the wild, the ones that exist in nature, and you want to find out the sum total. So there are various techniques you can use to gather their numbers and estimate and project how they grow or decline.
Now, what can be present in a particular environment before you can be talking about the presence of biodiversity? Is there biodiversity in every environment?
Well, in the past, yes. Every environment had biodiversity, but urbanization has affected that greatly. So we now find biodiversity in most countries or regions limited to protected areas, most protected areas, community protected forests, national parks, and or game reserves. You find biodiversity there because over the years, mankind has decimated nature, but we've realized how important they are for our very existence, and as such, governments are now coming together to designate certain areas as biodiversity areas, and then they identify them based on the plants and animals there, and then they try to protect them. So we do not have biodiversity everywhere. Here in Nigeria, our biodiversity is restricted to our 7 national parks mainly, and our some few game reserves here and there.
Okay, let me put you on hold there now. I'll return to you, in the course of the program. Let me get back to Dr. Okeyoyin. Why is it so important that biodiversity is worthy of protection?
Yeah, thank you very much, Victor. But before I answer your question, let me just add a little to what my sister said. When you say biodiversity, she rightly pointed out something that is a compound word, biological diversity. But to a layman, you will say variety of life form on Earth. That is biodiversity. So in terms of, it can be in 3 categories. In genetic formation, 1, 2 in species, 3 in ecosystems. So the biodiversity can be interpreted in those 3 something, in terms of genetic variations, in terms of species variations, in terms of ecosystem variations. So that is what biodiversity. So you are not asking the importance of biodiversity. So human beings should know that we need a vibrant and healthy nature, biodiversity, for us to survive. Because the clothes we wear is from biodiversity. The food we eat is from biodiversity. The water we drink, biodiversity. The air we breathe, biodiversity. Everything about humanity is centered on biodiversity. So again, to correct a little impression about whether where you can find biodiversity, even in this room, we have biodiversity. Mosquito, we have mosquito here. Mosquito is part of biodiversity.
I'm not sure of that.
You have a spider. You have a spider around here. It's part of biodiversity. All life forms in the world is biodiversity. So, and human survival depend on how we are able to effectively protect the biodiversity. As I said, the food, the water, the air, everything, medicine. And that is why this year, the theme for this year biodiversity something is our solutions are on nature.
Nature.
Solution to COVID-19 on nature. Solution for food scarcity on nature. Solution for air we breathe on nature.
Now, you talked about the ability to protect biodiversity, you know, being that man's life is dependent on that.
Yes.
Does that also include those life forms that could be harmful to man himself?
That is the question. Is there anything God created that is not good? Is there anything we can say is harmful? No. In our parlance, there is no anything, there is no organism that God created and is not of any use.
For instance, let a lion loose. Let a lion loose in Wuse.
When God created lion, God created lion to be in the jungle, not in the town. So it's you, human being, that you have gone and bring lion into the city. And bringing lion into the city again, you are not allowing the lion to move freely. You put lion in prison. Putting lion in cage is more or less putting human being in prison. So if you put human being in prison and human being that is free, the way they will behave differs. So the same thing, the lions that we work with in the park, their behavior is kind of different from the lions that we have in cages. The lions we have in cages are the ones that are wild. They are the ones that are dangerous. The ones that are in the wild, they respect human beings because that's how nature has created them. Nature has created lion, buffalo, snake to respect human beings. If you are moving and just your step, if snake perceive that human being is coming, snake will run away. But you, human being, God has made you to be over and above them. You want to kill. So in attempt to defend themselves, they attack. But you hardly see snake pursuing human being just to go and bite. No, right. No.
Let me leave you here. Let me put you on hold here and go back to Zoom where we have Zainab. Now, tell me, Zainab, how important is biodiversity that a day like this has to be set aside for the day, for it to be commemorated?
Well, in my opinion, every day is Biodiversity Day because from nutrient sequestering to agroecology to our water cycles, everything depends on biodiversity. Since between 40 to 60% still come from nature, the other part is by synthetic drugs, come from that. So it is essential and very important to have a day set aside like this to remind us the importance of nature. And never in the history of man has it been more pertinent to talk about nature as a collective for everybody, not just somebody whose field it is. Like me, I am a conservation biologist, but nature is supposed to be protected by all because it's for all of us.
Okay. I'll leave you again and get back to Dr. Keyonyi. What are the likely human activities that usually lead to, pollution or degradation of the environment? Because it appears that's what biodiversity is all about, the environment.
I think where we normally miss the point is that when we think we cannot reconcile conservation with development, that is where we are missing that's where we have the leaking point, the missing point. Conservation can go pari passu with development. So the moment you are constructing building and there's no proper planning, you are destroying the whole environment just because you want to build a mansion. Destruction of ecosystem is coming in there. In terms of agriculture, the safety cultivation that some of our people they are engaging in, you clear a large patch of land this year, you plant, next year you move to another place, clear the forest. Safety cultivation, we are destroying the ecosystem. So the farming system, if it's not in line with conservation ethics, it brings destruction. Then the type of vehicle that we use, machine that we use, foaming, all kind of something, smoking, all kind of, those are the things that are endangering human survival and destroying the ecosystem. So in terms of our activities, anthropogenic activities, farming, construction of building, construction of roads and all the rest, we are destroying the ecosystem. In terms of even hunting, illegal hunting, our hunting activities, unless we manage this something, so it's causing havoc to nature. Then during dry season, you see burning of bushes all over, smokes all over. So all this something, they are causing havoc to nature.
Now, but farming is important.
Yes.
So is land. And so is biodiversity, like you have said, conservation of the biodiversity.
Yes.
Where then do we draw a line in all of this? Because if you say farming, destroys the ecosystem, where do we draw a line? Because farming is important too, and Nigerians must feed.
Farming is very, very important because that's where food will come in for. But I'm talking of unplanned destruction of forest. Deforestation. At times, large mechanized farming, because before you engage in large mechanized farming, you clear a lot of forest. So what we are saying is that farming is important, but we should plan it in such a way that a small area of land can bring great output, rather than just clear everything. Take, for example, frog. Some years back, at the beginning of rainy season, early in the morning or late in the evening, you'll be hearing the sound of frogs call all over. Abi, are you still observing that kind of thing now? Why? Because of fertilizer chemicals that we are using.
Shouldn't that be
herbicide that we are using
season?
During rainy season, are you still observing them now? Chemical that we are using for our farming is killing a lot of this biodiversity. Fertilizer that we are using is killing a lot of the biodiversity. In those days when we were young, when I was young in the village, we don't use fertilizer, we don't use herbicide, and our farming and something, we are yielding very well. But now, the people will not even go and check the type of fertilizer that will be useful for the soil. They just apply anything, NPK, CP, apply all kinds of fertilizer. In the process, we are destroying the soil. And the more you are destroying the soil, you are affecting the yield of your agriculture in that farmland. So we are not saying that people should not farm, but we should farm in such a way that will not affect biodiversity. We should farm in such a way that will not affect nature.
It's getting interesting, isn't it? But it's time for us to take a break. When we return, the discussion will continue.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Welcome back. And if you've just tuned in, you're live on Nigeria Today, where we have been discussing COVID-19 and biodiversity with Dr. Agbola Okeyoyin, Assistant Conservator General, National Park Service, and Zainab Oiza Adeza, a conservation biologist who's joined us via Zoom. Let me go back to Zainab. Zainab, what lessons are there to learn about biodiversity with the outbreak of COVID-19, of course, in sight?
So the first lesson I would like people to take from this outbreak is, yes, we have a health crisis on our hands, but this is an environmental crisis as much as a health crisis, because it's an environmental crisis, in my view, with public health consequences. First and foremost, we're losing nature, biodiversity at an alarming rate because of urbanization, industrialization, and so on and so forth. The list is long. So man and nature are coming into conflict. And people are taking this nature, wildlife indiscriminately, putting them in areas that they shouldn't be, and diseases that they are reservoir hosts of now transmits into the human body, and then it becomes a problem. So the first lesson from this is what we've seen all over the globe, from satellite imaging, citizen scientists reporting, sites, clearer skies in China and other parts of the world like Italy, where they have previously had high pollution levels. And then in other places, you find animals where you've not found them before. And that is a light at the end of the tunnel. We've been worried that when we lose nature, we don't know if we will ever get what we've lost back and how fast we can get it back. But this global lockdown has shown us that nature can recover. That's the first beautiful lesson here. If it is given some time to rest, it can actually recover. So for us now, it's not too late to retrace our steps, stop indiscriminate logging, felling of trees, because one of the biggest problems we have in nature is not just carbon emissions, it's also cutting down of trees. We're emitting carbon through emissions, and the trees that are supposed to be sucking them up are being cut down. So it's like a double, a compound effect on nature. So first and foremost, we reduce emissions, and then we stop the logging of trees. That's the first step that we can take. And if we start doing that, I'm sure that in 12 months, if no tree is cut and nature is giving the deserved break, we would see tremendous changes, as we've seen in the last few weeks globally.
But then we need wood. We need wood. For instance, I'm sure you're sitting on some kind of wood, for instance. I'm trying to reason with you like the ordinary Nigerian will reason. And so where do we get the other things we need wood for? Where do we get it? Okay, nature is not selfish. Nature gives back. The problem that we're having is the rate at which we're taking the wood. Every time you go into a national park, you'll see falling logs and trees. Because when the wind blows at the beginnings of the rain, some trees fall. But people that log don't go to take those ones. They go and cut down a healthy tree that is standing. So if you go there and try to take falling logs, we will get enough.
as the popular quote says, that there's enough for every man's need, but there's not enough for every man's greed. So nature has enough to go around, and it will be enough if we manage it in a sustainable way.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll hold you there again and get back to Dr. Okeyoyi. What else can the society do to ensure that the biodiversity is conserved?
I think we just have to have a perfect and harmonious relationship with nature. Human beings should know that we have to care and respect other community life. I said it often and often that is the principle number one of sustainable living.
Okay.
Respect and care for other community life. Don't say because this one is not useful to me, therefore I should eradicate it. If it's not useful to you, it's useful to something that is useful to you. We should learn with that. Then you ask something which my sister there at the other end have said something very, very fundamental. The lesson we should learn from this COVID-19, the lesson there, again, is that nature have remedy for everything. Nature has provided remedy for everything you can think about.
In other words, COVID-19 is a remedy?
COVID-19 is there, but nature again has provided remedy. The one we are talking about, Madagascar, something is from nature. The one that our people are trying homegrown remedy they are talking about is from nature. So anything that is happening to us, we should know that the solution is in nature. And she said something about now we are seeing animals where we're supposed not to see them. Why? Because their natural habitat are being destroyed. If the natural habitat is there for them, they will not come to the village and the city to disturb you. So the moment there's any pandemic, we easily blame wildlife. When there was the other one, which one that happened before this COVID-19, the one that the state started in East Africa.
Lassa fever?
No, Lassa.
Ebola.
Lassa, you blame a rat. Ebola, you blame a wildlife. This one too, they are saying is a strain between one animal and a bat. So everything we blame wildlife. So let's leave the wildlife where God has created them. Where God has created us, let us be here.
All right.
So the thing is, conservation is not saying you should not eat. Conservation is not saying you should not cut tree. What conservation is saying is use them wisely. Wise use of resources. It's different from preservation.
Okay.
It's different from preservation.
Let me leave you here at the moment again and head back to Zainab. Zainab, on a final note, please tell me, how can the ozone layer be better protected?
Sorry?
You alluded to the ozone layer, to destruction of the ozone layer, and I'm asking, how can the ozone layer be better protected? And it's just for about 30 seconds.
So the first thing is that you have to know what depletes the ozone shield. And there are a few things that deplete the ozone shield, which includes CFCs. Some developed countries don't use them for making styrofoams anymore, but we still find them in some spray cans as propellants. So chlorofluorocarbons are one of the things that bring the ozone shield down. So what we should do here in Nigeria as a nation, we have to look at the things that break down the ozone shield, stop the production if we are producing them, or stop the importation of such materials. For example, styrofoams, for example, aerosol sprays that have CFCs. That's the first angle. And then the second angle is mopping up excess carbon from the atmosphere. So how you can do it is having a greener Nigeria.
All right,
even in the city, we can have green belts and plant trees and so on.
I'm running out of time now, Zainab. Thank you very much for joining us on Nigeria Today. Thank you so much for your perspectives and your time. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And finally, Dr. Okeyoyi, we have just about 10 seconds. What should be the strategy of government to ensure that biodiversity is further protected?
Conservation, 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 and planting of trees.
Thank
All
you
of
very
us
much.
should engage in planting trees.
Dr. Agbola Okeyoyin, Assistant Conservator General, National Park Service, thank you for coming on Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, this is the show, and that's how much time can allow us to take. But Nigeria Today is live every weekday at 7:30 in the evening, and you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azu. I thank you for watching.